Okay guys, so today I'm going to show you how to modify your cityscape project to add a background and to use gradient color in your cityscape project. So here I have my designer.gravit.io account open. I'm going to go File, Open from Cloud to find my cityscape. So I'm going to click on Open here. It's going to pull it up for me. Now there's a couple of different ways that I can do this. I want to add a layer that's in the back of everything. So I want to add a rectangle that is exactly the size of my artboard. So I'm going to click and drag it across. Now when I do that, it sends everything else, it layers it on top of everything else. I can see it right here. It's literally, it's on top of this pile of objects. So what's on top here is also on top here. Now this is a tool that I can use to turn things off and on, like the visibility off and on. So if I click on here, I no longer see that rectangle. It's still present, but I don't see it anymore. If I wanted to print this out, it would still show up in the print, but I'm just turning it off in order, like let's say I want to see something behind it, I can turn that on and off. If I wanted to know what this rectangle is, I can select it and it will show me here, or I can, toggle the visibility. Toggle is something that has two states, on or off. So I can toggle something that has two states that I can turn on and off. By the way, I can also use this lock feature so that here this object is locked down and it can no longer be selected. I can lock and unlock the objects like that so that when I select things, if I want to click and drag and select a bunch of things, if these objects were locked, it would not select them. Anyhow, that's a little bit more advanced than what you need to know right now. Let's turn this on. We are actually going to create a color in the background. So we're going to do this and then we're going to send it backwards. So in order to create a color here, I want to do a gradient color. Now a gradient color is a color that is not just all the same. It is a color that fades from one color to another color. And it may go across several colors. And it does that in a way that gradually decreases one color and increases the other color. So all of a sudden on the top maybe you have red and on the bottom maybe you have purple, and there's a fade between the two colors in between. So in order to, because this is going to be like a night sky, so I want to show that maybe it's sunrise or sunset in the sky. So I want to put a gradient in the background. I want you to try this as well. So when you click the object and you go to the fill, and it pulls it up here, you're going to click and you're going to say linear gradient. I'm going to show you both of them and you're going to decide which one you want to do. Now, there's lots of different ways that you can do this. I want to do it so that the sun looks like, let's see, I want to do it so that the dark is on top and the light is on bottom. So I can click and drag these endpoints. It's a lot easier than Adobe Illustrator. Now I want to click so that this color right here, I'd rather have it be something like an orange. Like, where's my orange? Let me start with this. That will give me this palette right here. I can go to Mixer. I can get a bunch of different oranges here. And then I want the top color to be something like a blue or a purple. Maybe something like a dark purple like that. Okay, so it looks like a sunset. All right. So it looks like there's ways that I can actually add different colors in here. So or I can pull up the gradient so that it doesn't fade into purple as much. So usually when the sun is going down, there's like a little aura of the sun's colors, and then it goes quickly into like twilight. I could also, if I wanted to, I could add another point here and add a different color like blue. So right now this point is selected, so I can add a blue into that as well. So it's fading from orange into this color right here is a pinkish color, blue, and into purple. Okay, so once I get it the way that I want it, maybe I don't want that to be, maybe I want this to be orange, but eventually down here I'd rather it be yellow. So I can pull up sort of a yellowish color right there and maybe have a tint like that. Okay, and maybe I just kind of mess around with this. Now that's the linear gradient, so it looks like lines. If I wanted to switch this to radial gradient, that is, it makes it look like circles. So if I wanted this to be like a semicircle, Maybe I would like it so that, ooh, that flattens it out this way. Maybe I don't want to flatten it out this way. Let me mess around with this. So you can kind of pull these down. Maybe I want the bottom to be like this. I kind of like the linear gradient better, but you can mess around with this. It's a lot easier to do this in Gravit than it is in Adobe Illustrator. So I kind of like the linear gradient a little bit better. I think it looks more normal. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to go to the linear gradient instead. And I'm going to drag this back down like this and this up like this. Now let's send this layer behind the other layers. So if you can click on this, there's actually a way up here. If you hover over it, you want to, actually no, it's in the edit or modify arrange, you want to send it to back. Okay, and all of a sudden that pushes it to the back of everything else. And it also shows you, you could click and drag that rectangle all the way to the bottom of your list of objects here, or you could just hit it and it sends it and say send it back, and it will automatically put it at the bottom. Now what you want to do is you want to lock this down so that if I moved anything around, this thing is locked and will never be selected. Otherwise, if you don't lock it, sometimes you'll click and drag it accidentally and it will shift off your artboard. Okay, so just when you get it to the place that you want it to, lock it down. If you ever want to change it, what you could do is unlock it, go like this. I think you might want to do edit or modify, arrange, bring to front, change it, and then modify, arrange, send to back. There's a shortcut key, but it's easy to also go there. Okay, and then lock it back again. So that's one technique of advanced color. Okay, one other thing that I want to show you in order to make your project a little bit more complex is I want you to have a background layer of buildings. Okay, so when I go and I look at some of the inspiration pictures, what you'll notice about these pictures is that there is a foreground layer, and then there is the buildings that are in the back that are all the same color, but they are sent in between. They're in a layer that's in the back of these buildings, but in the front of this. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're just going to make a layer of buildings right here all the way across. So we're just going to grab the tool, the rectangle tool, R, and I'm just going to keep making these buildings right here. And they're just going to be a certain, I'm going to keep my finger on R in order to keep the rectangle constantly selected because it goes back to the selection tool. So I'm just going to make a bunch of buildings here. Don't worry about the color yet. Okay. Okay, so to make more of these, I'm just going to copy and paste and then modify them like that. It's actually a little easier to do that than to keep doing what I'm doing, which is creating these rectangles. Okay. You can make these shapes a little bit more interesting, but in the interest of your time, I'm not going to do that right now. Oops, I want to copy and paste here. So maybe you make them with different windows. You can use the inspiration pictures to help you out. So you have this solid layer back here. Now what you're going to do is you're going to group all of these things together. So you're going to selection tool, click, and hold down Shift and select everything in this layer. Okay, and then maybe you want to change them to a darker color. You might want to change the opacity so they're grayed out a little bit like this. That's this slider right here. And once you have them all changed together, you want to hover over here and group them. So these are all now in a group. Okay. Now, once you do that, you want to send them all the way back. All right. And then we're going to bring the other, because we want it behind the layer of buildings, between the layer of buildings and the sky. So I'm going to go edit or modify, arrange, send to back. Okay, now it's at the very bottom. And I'm going to click and drag it up one layer. All right, so it's in front of the rectangle that is the background, but it's behind the buildings themselves. And you want to make this a little bit more interesting, but that's another way to add complexity onto your project. Okay, so this is what I expect after this lesson. This is a summative assessment. So you want to make sure, and I'm going to grade it for a number of different lessons, you want to make sure that you have everything that you need to get a good grade on this. And that's it for today.